of the Board of Selectmen of January 23rd, 2025. The first item on the agenda is the Fire Department promotions presentation. Want to step up?
Thank you. Would just like to start out with a few points of information. Fire department this year, or 2024, responded to 276 calls for calls. That's approximately a 16% increase from 2023. And very proud to say that we did not have any non-responses, where we had to call other folks into the town. Now, folks did come into town, of course, to help us mutual aid, but we had response to all 276 calls, which I feel very proud of, and I thank all the members of the department for that.
That's excellent work.
Their response and help. Purpose of tonight is that we have two individuals that are being promoted within the department. First one is Jason Lambert. Jason started with the fire department in 2009, right out of high school. He has served as firefighter and lieutenant. Jason is a level 2 firefighter and has completed many level 3 courses throughout the years. It's a great pleasure to promote Jason to the rank of captain. The shield for his helmet has the number 33 on it, which designates his grandfather's last ID call number for while he served on the Canaan Fire Department. Jason wears that very proudly. Congratulations. Second is Mark Olson. Mark is being promoted from firefighter to lieutenant. Mark started with the Enfield Fire Department in 2019, excuse me. 2019. Mark is a level 2 firefighter and he's currently working towards his AEMT license and certification. Mark currently works for the Windsor, Vermont Fire Department as a full-time firefighter. But with that, that brings us a lot of experience, other training that he gets that he can pass on to our department. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to present you with the helmet, the lieutenant shield. The red helmet designates lieutenants and captains within the Enfield Fire Department. Have the other members of the fire department just stand up. I want to go around and just quickly introduce everybody. We have Emily Curtis, who is EMT firefighter for the Enfield Fire Department, Enfield Fast Squad. Richard Mayhew, firefighter. Lloyd Hackerman, who's a lieutenant. Austin Lyman, who is firefighter and also on the Fast Squad as an AEMT. Richard Martin, who was a captain with the Enfield Fire Department and EMT with the Fast Squad and chief of the EMS squad. Josh Wessels, who is the captain with the fire department. Thank you very much.
Yes. Yeah. On behalf of the select board, I'd like to express our very heartfelt thanks to all of the firefighters and all of the EMTs who volunteer so much of their time and their expertise. We know how hard that is. I know how hard it is to get up in the middle of the night to do something. What you guys do is just amazing. So thank you very much.
Maybe to take over.
By all means.
Okay, I apologize for being late. Yes, some crazy schedules.
Approval of the minutes.
Approval of the minutes, okay. Approval of the minutes for December 16th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as printed.
I would second that.
Is there any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Okay. Board reports. John, let's start with you.
Well, the budget committee, did meet on January 9th. It was a good meeting. And, you know, we came to the conclusion that the budget process has worked well, both in the analysis of the budget and in the departments maintaining, reasonable budgets over the course of the year. The overall budget for the town went up 2%. But we lost some funding from the state, particularly in the room and meals tax. And we had previously dipped into the undesignated fund, thank you, and that got us into a little trouble. We're not gonna do that again in the near future. You know, I'm personally really concerned about funding from the state coming into this next budget year, because there are lots of proposals in the legislature to do things that are gonna cost money that will no doubt get passed down to the towns, and we're gonna keep a close eye on that. But to a large extent, that's sort of out of our hands. We just hope that they maintain reasonable standards. And Mr. Dr. Beaufait, online made, 3, motions, about, reducing the budget. The budget committee voted down all 3 of those. That tells me that the budget committee is happy with the budget where it stands. And we are just really impressed with how the different departments maintained, their limits.
Thank you, John. Any questions for John on the budget? Oh, Tracy?
The Energy Committee has not met since the last meeting. But however, we have Energy Committee representatives here tonight and they'll have a presentation in a few minutes.
Okay.
Conservation Commission met, and while the agenda wasn't very lengthy, the discussion was. I think it would behoove everybody in the town of Enfield to pay a lot of attention to a topic that was raised by Kurt Gotthard. He is asking the Conservation Commission to look at changing some class 6 roads to trails. And that has a lot of components. One of them is it limits what can travel, so no wheeled vehicles. There was some arguments made for and against that were pretty interesting. I think one of the big ones for us to watch as a select board would be how the responsibility changes for maintenance, because on a class 6 road, we are legally barred from spending money to fix it. They could be asking for money to maintain this trail, and if there's nobody in a wheeled vehicle going over them doing the maintenance, then that maintenance would fall potentially into our budget. So from a budgetary standpoint, I think that's probably the most interesting piece for the board as a whole. For the citizenry here, I think it's very important to think about accessibility and what having trails versus allowing wheeled vehicles means to you and your neighbors. So there was some really good discussion. The meeting was very well attended online. And so I would encourage you to watch the YouTube video and kind of hear some of the discussion and give some feedback to conservation. We also had a brief presentation also on this community resilience building. And so I won't belabor that because you're going to hear a bit about that tonight.
A question, has Rob, distributed my email? Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to say he didn't do it because I'm not sure I'm caught up on emails, but I will definitely check.
Because there are some, really repercussions of that kind of change, that impact those people who abut, a class 6 road, which presently counts as one's legal 100-foot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it would,
It's the road frontage for,
the road frontage.
for lots, yeah.
Yes,
right,
absolutely.
and it would make it so some people could not access their lot.
Right.
So.
I'll be at the next meeting.
Yeah. I do not see it, so yeah, Ed, would you just, see
I'll put
what,
it on my-
he may have a packet of stuff he wants to send around. I know there were some other topics.
you.
Thank you.
Alice?
Eva and Heritage Commission have not met since the last time we all met, but they are both meeting this Thursday.
Planning board had a very productive meeting. This was last week. Had the public hearings for well, it'll end up being 4 articles on town warrant for town meeting. One around ADUs, one around parking areas, and one around the Route 4 and Community Business District. And one for the R5 district as well. And then had formal adoption of the master plan, which now includes the last 5 chapters. So we now have a complete 10-chapter master plan, which is excellent. And that group that did an excellent job. They should encourage people to go look at it. It's a really nice document, with a lot of good things and a lot of good input from people in town all throughout. And we did get approval for a second hot grant for approximately $37,000. So they'll be doing, going over the new statement of work and potentially picking a contractor tomorrow. So that was the planning board. Any questions on board reports? All right, town managers report.
All right, I'll start just with a slight clarification of what John talked about on budget. On the revenue side of things from the state, we've conservatively budgeted revenues for the same tier that you talked about at the end. We technically haven't lost revenue from the state yet. This year, we got about what we budgeted in most everywhere. I think a little bit more in Meals and Rooms, but we're really concerned and being cautious going into this legislative session. I know it's going to be a tough budget year and we do expect some downshifting. So that was the change on the budget side from there. Other than that, yeah, it was, we've worked hard on the budget and I commend the budget committee for all the work that they've put in and all the discussions they've had with department heads. With that, on a staff report, we lost 2 more DPW employees last month. One light equipment operator and Nicolette, our groundskeeper, have resigned from the town. One of the groundskeepers we did hire had a CDL, so we were able to move him up into the light equipment operator. So we're using him there now, and we have 2 grounds positions that'll be open moving through the year. So
Can you share where they went?
I don't know exactly where they went. I know Ben left for sure for a pretty decent money increase. I think we're a few dollars behind a lot of people around here, especially private companies. I think they're $3 to $5 more an hour. So that is something that I will be looking at, and I've been working with Jim and Jeremy to look at more of a career ladder that we can put in there, so there's a little bit more movement through their ranks. But that's something we'll be working on. Is that?
We have like a formal exit interview process.
We do not. We've tried to exit interview some of the people. We did ask Ben to come in and he did not come in, so. Some of the people we have, some of them not.
But there's nothing standardized, like when people leave, we do A, B, and C to
We need to
understand
get
what
a little
happened.
bit better at that, but we have not done that on a consistent basis. Whitney Hall Public Safety Building, I say good news, we've been moving into Whitney Hall over the past week. We scheduled to move mid-January. Though they're still working on the building a little bit, we stuck with our schedule and I'm gonna say kind of moving in around them. It actually lit a little bit of a fire and we got some of the last stuff done really quickly, so we're pretty much done on the downstairs and they're getting a few details done on the library level. I did ask them to, I don't want to say stop work, but slow work down on the upper meeting level to concentrate on those 2 floors so we can get in and move in. We made some last minute change order stuff in their stairwells, so the stairwells are still painted and not finished, but they'll be accessible at least one at a time as we start to open to the public, and we'll get those done over the next few weeks. Be in the building, but it's nice to be moving in. The movers completed the actual movement of equipment and stuff today, and so I'd like to thank actually all the staff, the town office staff, for all their work and patience and moving in. They've been moving around the building, putting away boxes and getting everything straightened out. And then the DPW crews have been great. They've been up there for the past few weeks, putting shelving together, mounting it in places, putting stuff together for us, moving some boxes. They'll be up there again tomorrow. I think they welcome being over there with this cold weather right now, but we'll have them, just putting some more stuff together, helping us get organized for next week when we open to the public. So, nice to be coming to the final stages of that project. I will update you guys as I have a little bit more on some budget numbers. It'll take probably a few months to start to finalize those, but we are coming in under budget, and I'm really confident that the elevator costs that were outside of that will be absorbed within the original contract.
Is the elevator contractor done now?
Not yet. They're pretty much done, but they have to come back and do some work that had to be done after the firewall's installed, because everything's computer controlled now. And then, we're waiting on a specialty made oil separating sump pump for the elevator pit that hopefully is here within the next week or so, because we can't get our license to open that door. So, little bit of few moving pieces. I'm sure the opening will be a little bit slow and sporadic, but we'll be able to get people into the town offices, to the clerks, and then the library will be opening in the next few weeks, probably.
Can we get a grand opening on the books with the library trustees? Because I know they have a lot of donors to thank too.
Yeah, we'll be working on that. I was thinking probably closer to spring, it's after we've got in and the building's completed. Settled in, a grand opening ceremony.
Just we get to have a date.
Yeah, as soon as we can get it.
Yeah. It'd be nice for as many people as possible.
After town meeting, so.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And then the public safety building is still moving along well. It's actually slightly ahead of schedule, and I'm gonna put in parentheses at this time. We all know with construction, one little thing can slow that down. Right now, they're telling us we have a tentative completion date of early May, so kind of excited to see that. Rough-in electric is currently being completed in offices, along with finishing touches on rough-in plumbing and HVAC. Drywall has been being hung at a pretty furious pace. They're hanging one side of the wall while they're running electric and plumbing on the other side. So drywall's going in, it's starting to really take shape as a building. We're excited. They've painted pretty much all of the fire bays, so it's starting to really take shape in there as well. And then, as you guys have probably seen if you're driving by, siding of the bays is complete, and they'll be moving on to the exterior of the offices. And that project's going well. I mentioned it at the last meeting, but we applied for an ARPA funding grant through Grafton County to offset the cost of ballistic windows. We applied for about 24,000, and we just received notice that they awarded us $19,046 to help offset that cost in the public safety building. So that was good work by Chief Holland applying for that grant with short notice. I also want to just kind of point out that Chief Holland's worked really hard trying to find grants for the building, both buildings, but he's finding more for the public safety. There's not much out there for Whitney Hall, but he was able to find a company, and he can speak to it a little more if he wants, a ballistic company that donated all the ballistic panels that go around the bulletproof windows that we're trying to put in, and those ballistic panels were in the budget at a total of $12,300. So pretty good work on the one wall in the public safety building.
Nice.
For the cybersecurity fraud that we've been working on, we have received a $75,000 check from Beasley, the cybersecurity insurance company. So we got that full 75,000 back. I also found out this week that Primex covers the $50,000 deductible minus their expenses in the fraud. And they wrote me this week and said we should be expecting a check for $48,661.25, which brings the recovered amount from the cybersecurity incident to $380,869.48, with the current amount lost being brought down to $361,427.75. So we'll continue working on that. I don't expect to get much, if any, back more from Bank of America. So that might be about where we land, but it was really nice to get the Primex news. Didn't expect that money coming in. And as I told you before, that's in the public safety loan account, and we will be managing that project as tight as we would have managed it anyway, but we'll be really working towards trying to get that worked off the loan amount. Happy to report, and hopefully you guys keep an eye on it, that the Shaker Bridge lights have finally been repaired. They found a short in one of the lights and was able to fix that, and we're keeping an eye on it daily. Yeah. Eric covered a lot of the land use reports, but we do have 4 proposed zoning ordinance that'll be coming forward to the town meeting warrant. One amendment is to increase the accessory dwelling unit size from 800 square feet to 1,200 square feet. And then with that, there'll be some language that mandates that they put in appropriately sized septic systems during the installation of the ADU. I think that's really good wording. There's also an amendment to the Route 4 zoning district relating to the form-based prescription zoning. So it'll be removing that Route 4 district and returning it to the community business zone district.
So that we don't have 2 overlays.
Yeah, and it gets rid of the form-based zoning that made Family Dollar put windows against the street. Those things, they just found that it wasn't working the way they thought it would, and moving back to the commercial zoning or community business district would be a better fit. An amendment to standardize parking requirements in all zoning districts. And then an amendment to allow 2-family dwellings in the rural residential R5 district, which right now only allows single-family dwellings.
That's an R5?
That's in R5. There is a scenic road hearing this Wednesday, 1/22/25 at 6:30. That'll hear Liberty Utilities vegetative cutting plans for Loft Haven, Oak Hill, Ivy, and Clute roads. So if anybody's interested in going to that, that'll be this Wednesday.
Might have cut some of
Tomorrow,
What time?
6:30. There's a
Here?
lot from land use.
Yeah.
We have been notified from the New Hampshire Superior Court that the formal appeal by Linda Jones and House Edstead for the Laramie Farms variance decision was denied by the courts. So that project will be moving forward. We had asserted the whole time that our zoning board acted in good faith in a very difficult manner, and the court agreed conclusively with our assertion. Community development update. We're partnering with EVA to host a small business resource event scheduled for February 20th at 5:30 p.m. at the Enfield Shaker Museum at the Great Stone Dwelling. A representative from the U.S. Small Business Administration will be there to discuss all small business administration resources. We've also set up for Grafton Regional Development Corporation to be there to showcase their offerings. And I heard a rumor today that our Dan, our new brewer that's trying to open a brewery, will be there to give some samples and help. So it should be a really good event to help some of our small businesses in town know what resources are out there to help them. And then just a quick zoning update. There's been a jump car zoning violation issued to 1017 North Route 4A, which has been completed to the land use office's satisfaction. And then there's been letters sent and they're working on jump car zoning violations at 354 Lock Haven Road and 411 Shaker Hill Road. And then we're working right now at 135 King James Road on an illegal boarding house issue and a few other issues going on there. We're working hand in hand with the health department, building department, land use, and police department on some issues going on. So just to let you guys know some of the stuff they've been working on.
And I'm gonna plead ignorance on this. What is an illegal boarding house?
I mean, renting multiple rooms out of a house that's supposed to be a single family.
Okay, so it's like not an Airbnb type such. Okay. I was like.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm glad to hear we're moving forward on these things.
Yeah.
We've been working on them. It's just, he put them in his report. I thought, you know what, that's a really good idea to leave that in there and talk about. So, just a few things on DPW. They addressed 38 storm events so far since Thanksgiving. So they've been really busy. We haven't had a lot of snow, but the ice and slick conditions and things we had actually make them work harder and are a little bit more expensive than a large snow event. So they've been out a lot. They've been really busy, and just like to thank them for all the work they've been putting in, along with coming to Whitney Hall, and putting things together. So,
Perhaps you could thank them from the select board also.
Yeah, they've done
That'd
a
be
really nice
appropriate.
job. I mean, some of the stuff they've gotten tossed at them for weather has been really terrible.
the DPW and our engineer have been working with DES, and they concurred with us on the sewer project bid, and they've awarded. The notice of award has been issued to Instituform Technologies of Charlton, Mass. So they'll be having pre-construction meeting and moving on along with that, the sewer work, the stormwater work that we need to do. FEMA has reopened the grant program that we applied for several times in the past for Potato Road. They reached out to us the past couple of weeks, and Jude Holland and Jim Taylor are working and making sure we get that put back in, hopefully to be finally awarded.
And what are the goals of that?
You know exactly what the project is?
Yeah, it's a hazard mitigation grant. So I'm sure you're familiar with on the lower Potato Road,
Yep.
that culvert that always washes out.
Oh, yeah,
during that
yeah,
storm.
yeah.
This will be a mitigation, which means we can, instead of replacing it in kind, we can actually fix it so it doesn't keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Is that the one near the Canaan line?
Yes.
Excellent.
And then, Director Taylor wanted to let you guys all know that, Bill Brown has passed the solid waste operator's license exam. He's the new solid waste operator that we have at the transfer station.
Yeah.
So he's passed his licensing exam, and from what I've been hearing, he's been doing a really good job down there.
Really excellent job.
That is all I have from my manager.
Questions for it?
I received the sewer ordinance in the mail as one of the addressees living next to a lake. I couldn't find that we'd yet posted it to the town website.
Been on there, but we can probably post it somewhere, maybe easier.
It may be there, but I couldn't find it, so it may be there.
I had to call Ed because when I got a question, I didn't know what it said. So I was like, ah.
Yes, and definitely,
Send
if you get
people.
questions, send them to Vinny and or me.
No, I thought Vin's letter was a very good cover letter, frankly,
Okay.
and quite clear. And hopefully will not result in,
I will say the one thing
Too many
I want to
issues.
clarify, and we'll make sure to put that on there, and it is in the ordinance. I think in the letter, it said New Hampshire DES licensed. septic installer, and it's a New Hampshire licensed installer. DES doesn't technically license that, but figured most people will figure that out. It is in the
Yeah.
septic ordinance, right? If we can clarify that if someone is curious.
All right. Any questions? We'll move on to the business of the evening, starting with community resilience building workshop discussion. Come on up. Yeah, come on up. That'll be a lot easier.
So this is Anna White. She's been working with us. I mentioned a few months ago about the resilience grants that Upper Valley Lake Sunapee Regional Planning Commission got. She's met with me and Jim once, and then Jim and a few other people from the Energy Commission, some others from town on some resilience planning and things we can do around town to help with stormwater issues and different climate issues. So she's here to talk about a workshop opportunity and anything else she wants us to throw in there when she has the floor.
Yeah, so there's this opportunity to host a resilience community building workshop from the Nature Conservancy. And it's a free workshop. It just requires the support of the town and the involvement of town. So I have a letter I will read. Dear Select Board members, given previous and ongoing events, we now find ourselves in a new era of more unpredictable and severe weather that can potentially cause more damage to our community in Enfield. To be as proactive as we can in preparing and protecting Enfield, it would be prudent to move forward and accept the offer to conduct a community resilience building workshop for our town. The Nature Conservancy, in cooperation with the University of New Hampshire Extension, is offering this timely workshop at no charge to Enfield. The workshop The workshop will bring together community leadership and members like you to comprehensively identify and prioritize steps to reduce risk and improve resilience across Enfield and beyond. This workshop is intended to be both additive and complementary to ongoing planning efforts, such as the local hazard mitigation planning efforts. The workshop's objectives are as follows: strengthen and understand between hazard impacts and local planning efforts, evaluate strengths and vulnerabilities of this community, infrastructure, and natural resources, and develop and prioritize resilient actions for the municipality, local organizations, businesses, neighborhoods, land trusts, community organizations, and the Regional Planning Commission. We hope you will sign on to this important effort. Thank you for your consideration.
This will be a great addition to the septic ordinance we did, all the work we're trying to do to stop runoff, stormwater runoff from going in the lakes and different things. And it's a great way to get some public outreach, look at our hazard mitigation plans, and look at places that we can improve and plan some projects for the future.
What would this require from the town?
In time.
The support of meeting space, not necessarily any funds.
Leadership from the town, or is that provided in other ways?
There are people from the Nature Conservancy and volunteers that will lead and facilitate the workshop.
Oh, okay.
We will probably have some staff time and organization, and I would more than likely have a couple department heads or some people throughout the organization to attend the meeting to help out.
I can tell you the conservation, folks seemed pretty interested. There was no motion made or anything, but they, but Anna did do this presentation for them and they seemed very interested in how it ties into the work conservation is doing.
But planning board didn't discuss this, but this ties in directly with a number of things planning boards were talking about how do we deal with storm runoff from a zoning perspective and water resources. And, we're seeing more and more impacts on people's properties. Before, so I think we should support this.
Yeah, so I just want to be clear, this is resilience specifically in the face of increasingly extreme weather and increasing frequency of climate-related hazard. Yeah, so there was, Hartford recently did this workshop and they identified extreme heat, flooding and erosion as one of the main, or some of the main, weather-related impacts that the town deals with. And then you go from there and identify strengths and vulnerabilities. And that could be like areas that are strengths or vulnerabilities or organizations.
Do we need a motion for?
I would make a motion from the select board whether to support and host one of these.
Yeah, I would move that we support this program.
I'll second that.
Any discussion from the board? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great.
Thank you.
Next up, the Energy Committee, the warrant article discussion, first, and then we'll do the rate change discussion.
Okay,
So,
so the warrant article, just to remind people, this is a warrant article to see if the town would like to create an Enfield local rate, electricity rate. And there's two parts to the warrant. One is to set that rate or put boundaries around what the select board would set. And the second warrant article is to establish the actual energy reserve fund. So where the money could come in. This is the final, I think you want me to read it or anything? I'm not sure what the status is of the warrant articles. I have what I think is the final version.
Well-
That's been back and forth between the select board and,
yeah, why don't you go ahead and read
Okay.
it? But I think correct me if I'm wrong, and eventually we'll have a public hearing on whatever the final.
well, we talked about a public information information session, but it doesn't need a public hearing. Happy to
It
do a
might
public
be a
hearing.
public
Yeah.
hearing.
Okay.
We will have public hearing
Yeah.
for many of the warrant articles. right
Okay.
before
So
they-
I guess all I'm saying is
Yeah.
if there was a change, there'll be another meeting where that change will be
Okay.
explained. So,
Okay, so I'll read
Yeah.
it for everybody here. The first warrant article is to see if the town would vote to allow the select board to establish a new default community power rate, which would be lower or equal to the Granite Plus rate. The new default rate would be called the Enfield local rate, and the proceeds of such an adder would be dispersed to the town to be used for energy efficiency projects and initiatives around town. Enfield residents participating in community power may opt out of this Enfield local rate and may opt into the Granite basic rate. This article is contingent upon passage of the second article. If that article doesn't pass, this will be null and void. So that's the first article. I don't know about the order, but I guess that's the first article. The second article says, to see if the town would vote to establish a community-powered energy reserve capital reserve fund for the purposes of funding energy efficiency projects and initiatives around the town, to be funded primarily by proceeds from this reserves from the Community Power Enfield local rate, collected in the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, CPCNH, Enfield Fund escrow account, and dispersed to the town. No additional funds to be raised through taxation. This article is contingent upon the passage of the previous article. Okay, that's the articles. I don't know if we're gonna have a public session for
well,
discussion,
if there are questions
but yeah.
people have now, I think it's a good time to do it.
Just in terms of wording, in the first line where it's to establish a new default, and then it says community power rate, should it say Enfield community power rate, since we usually refer to it as Enfield community power?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, yeah,
And actually, right after that, there was in parenthetically to include like 2 cents at 2/10 of a cent added to the Granite basic rate. I don't know what the parenthetical means. Does that mean that the select board is still thinking about it, or you want us to suggest?
Yeah,
another-
whether we may want to set a rate that goes to town meeting. The other thing I could talk to the attorney about a little more is if we word it in a way to give the authority to the select board to set what that rate is, like to do with other rates.
Okay.
We can go either way, or you guys can have the discussions. The general wording of both of these came from our attorneys. We did make a few little changes, and I think that parentheses was one of them that, maybe we should add this, should not add this. But before I sent it back to them, I wanted to have discussion.
Can the public ask a question?
Yep, I'm just gonna give the board chances, then we'll take questions.
Ask a question?
Let me just finish with the board and then we'll get, yep. Are there other comments or questions from the board regarding it? Good, yeah, so, and then just please state your name for the minute taker.
Susan Brown, I have solar power, and the things that talk about community power that I see going on, people with solar power are left out.
That's true.
They're gonna do this for everybody in town, they're gonna help their electric rates, but those of us who have put in solar panels and paid for them will not see any lowering of our rates, and I kind of feel bad about supporting your articles.
Okay, so this article is not, it's not possible to distinguish between people who are community power members and people who are not. So any funds that are collected that are just, will be affecting the whole town. So yes, you would be benefiting from any of the projects that would come from these funds. Does that make sense?
And,
That's what, so I'll see what happens.
and unfortunately, that decision around the participation of people with solar panels is outside of our control.
That's the state.
Correct.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
still
they
working.
will lower the rates for solar,
Correct.
people with solar power.
That's right. And Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire is working all the time to try to get the solar, people with solar energy to be able to be part of the program.
Thank you.
Keep working on it.
David?
So this rate would not be the lowest rate available to the residents of Enfield, is that correct?
The Enfield, right, correct. It would not,
But they
be-
would have to opt into the lower rate.
they can opt into the lower rate.
So they would be automatically enrolled in the higher rate.
Yes,
That's a tricky issue.
it's a tricky issue, and I think that's a big reason for public, discussion and more information, that we, will, be putting on the listserv. I think it's important that people know they have a choice
Yeah.
and they can make a choice.
I guess we have to remind people you can do
I
this.
think we should remind people every 6 months. About every 6 months, we have a new rate, and it's a
Right.
good idea to tell everybody what that rate is and how they can change themselves into a different,
I think that's a wonderful idea.
I think it has come up.
which is part 2 of this
Yeah,
discussion.
it really has nothing to do with this, but on that
Right.
same note, we really should be publicizing that anyway, because
Yeah.
it's still, if people move,
Yeah.
you don't automatically get opted into community power. You actually have to go make the change.
So we do have what we call, the Community Power Coalition does try to do refreshes.
Yep.
Which is to say it's months later, like if you move into Enfield and you set up your account with Liberty, then, you won't get automatically opted into community power, until, go ahead.
The refresher goes out
Quarterly. So it could be as long as 3 months
It
later.
takes over 6 months. I've done it
I
twice.
think
Mhm.
I think it could take 6
I
months.
think, I remember last summer, I had
had
an
a problem.
expectation, we were
Yeah.
expecting it would happen, but the first year it didn't happen.
The first year was hard. Hopefully at this point, we're getting on a quarterly schedule. But in any case, sending information out. Again, the listserv and the newsletter, if anybody has other, good ideas. That's where we put as much information as we can, and we'll do it on a regular basis.
Honestly, I was in a local business recently that had changed hands, and I said, you have all these new coolers. You guys are on community power, right? And so, I mean, there's something that all of us can do, because the more users we have, the better the rate negotiation.
And the better, yes, exactly. Better it is.
Dave Buffet, Street. Generally, my understanding has been that capital reserve funds have specific purposes. And the wording of these two articles seems a little loose to me. Maybe that's because they're being held not by the, town, but by, the,
CPC and A.
organization. I forget the acronym, but it would help, I think, has very specific purposes. The electrical improvements such as, or, a list of several of those that might be included, in that, in one of the two or both, articles.
So when we submitted this to the select board, we had that list, and I was hopeful, and maybe it does come out in the area below the warrant article that's discussion or something. Do we have that possibility
You
in
could put something in the narrative,
the narrative? That's, yeah,
That's not binding, is it?
it's not fine.
not as binding, but no, it's something for you guys to think about. If you put a few special projects, it can be nothing else ever in the future. Leaving it a little bit more vague with some description around what type of projects gives a little bit of flexibility in the future, as long as it's, I mean, this is really defined that it has to be an energy efficiency type project for the town.
I think the big thing about energy projects is that the field of energy is changing really fast. is one of the fastest changing. And so, you know, things like hydrogen aren't available on a small scale, right? But they are out there and they're in the future. Some of the battery scale ups that are really expensive are changing. And so I get a little nervous about trying to guess what future technology looks like in energy. I wouldn't want to be that person. That's why we have hedge fund people.
I do this work.
I know you
every
do
day,
this
and I
work
don't want
every
to
day.
be that person.
Right, and so I guess we could restrict ourselves and say solar panels to throw one out, but I do worry a little bit about closing ourselves off to maybe a better form of technology that's more efficient.
Gotcha.
I, Karen Buffet Enfield. Conceptually, I understand this. I think I'm uncomfortable with the way that, okay, you have this program and great, everybody's gonna get a great new rate. And people can pay a little more if they want green energy, et cetera. I appreciate that. I think to be told now that I'm gonna be put on this versus this, if this is so great, then present it that way and ask people to buy in instead of, oh, well, we've just done this to you. We've decided that this is the way it's going to be now, and you have to opt out. That does not feel comfortable to me.
Yeah, so there isn't a program if it's opt-in only, because no, 1%, 2% people. So if the town thinks, as a whole town, everybody gets to vote, there's warrant articles, that it's a good idea to put some savings into energy efficiency programs, then that's why it's an opt-out program, not an opt-in program. It's because just don't even bother if you're not gonna do it opt-in, because you just won't make any, there won't be any fun.
Another form of taxation.
It's,
I mean, it's a user tax and people have to decide if they want to do it. That's why it's gonna
but you
go.
can't opt out,
Go to
and
town
that,
meeting.
so it's so different than property tax. You can't opt out of your property taxes.
And I think from a select board perspective, that's why this is a warrant article, not something simply adopted by the select board. So that's why it's going to town meetings, specifically for that concern. So this will be the town voting on it.
I think that's a good point. I mean, there is authority for the select board to adopt this, but they decided to take this to town meeting.
Yep.
I think we're gonna have some really interesting discussions that come out of this, where we're gonna learn a lot about people's energy priorities and about how they feel about, you know, everything from soup to nuts of climate change. We're gonna hear some things that are offshoots that are gonna help us as a board learn too.
Yeah. Okay,
Are there other questions around that warrant article at this point? All right, let's do the rate.
okay, so in late December, it was the next rate setting time that I think you probably attended, or at least had to give your approval as the select board for the rates that Community Power Coalition established for that granite basic rate. As of November 2024, the community power group has Enfield Community Power has saved over $495,000 for our residents. The rate settings for this next rate period. So a rate period is 6 months, and the rates get set in late December and start on February 1 through the end of July. Then they get set again in June for August 1 through the next period. So there's 2 rate settings every year. And so the one that we just set, the utilities, who we're, setting our rates against in some ways, were given the permission to play by new rules. And they were allowed to set their default rate supplies, electricity supply rates, lower than the cost of service. And they can make up for it later, including spreading those players. So this is a problem that Community Power Coalition and Consumer Advocate and a number of people are arguing against, because the rules are no longer a fair playing field with third-party suppliers like Community Power. All that said is Community Power Coalition is made up of members, it's nonprofit, et cetera. And we can't do the same, we can't set our rates the way they are. We have to set our rates at a level that will continue the sustainability of the program and that will allow for us to have benefits to our community members, et cetera. And so what happened in this last rate period is that Liberty's rate is too low for community power to go under. And this is the first time it's happened, and we don't expect it will happen very much, but it did. So this rate period, the Granite basic rate, Enfield's community power is 8.9 cents kilowatt hour, slightly less than Eversource, but slightly more than Liberty. So what that means is if you're a Liberty customer and you'll be paying a little bit more rather than a little bit less than Liberty. And so what we want to do is make clear, as we were saying, that we post all this information, and also for anyone who wants to switch back to Liberty Default to get the slightly lower rate, they can do that. No, there's no penalties, there's no fees. You can go back and forth between Enfield Community Power and Liberty or Eversource or New Hampshire Electric Co-op, wherever you're on. You can go back and forth. It takes a month because you put in your request, and then the next time they read your meter, it will go to the lower rate or to the other rate. So, so it's important. This is the first time that's happened. As I said, we've saved, almost $500,000 for the people of Enfield. This one rate period, if it's the only one, especially in a long time, it means you'd be paying for the average person something like, I think it was $2 more per month to stay on community power for this rate period compared to going to Liberty. So I want to put all that information out so people can choose. They want to change their rates. Any questions about the rates or what we're doing and how community power makes its decisions?
So Liberty has been jacking up their other fee by FOFUM is what I call it. Are they using that to support their?
Yes, they are. And that is what
Cheater
everyone wants to fight. Yes, it's cheating. It's called cheating.
It's
The flat out ugly cheat.
it's classic regulatory cash.
Just to give, I don't know if it's a good thing or not, it's a good thing, is community power coming in saying rates can be this low.
Right.
Has forced
Down.
has forced all the utilities to say, not the utility, the PUC to say, utilities, you better bring your rates down too. Look, other people can do it. What's your problem? So it's good that it helps bring rates down for everybody. That part's the key. Do you want to say something, John? Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Town meeting location discussion. I know we talked about it in the spring after last year's town meeting. I did not get a chance to go back through our minutes about, we discussed PBS versus the high school auditorium and that difference.
Yeah, we reviewed the video and the minutes. There was brief discussion about it. There was no consensus made or anything. We did hear, I guess, before that meeting, coming out of town meeting, we've heard a lot of complaints from the public and some of the board members here about it. I don't know exactly what happened, but me and Elisa both went away from that meeting thinking we needed to reserve and move towards the high school, so we did that. I guess she can discuss a little bit more about kind of where we're at right now and kind of what availability is at other places, and then we can have a bigger discussion at the select board level of what you guys want to do, but.
So as I've informed you already in your packets, the Enfield Village School is scheduled for a school event starting at 3 o'clock on that Saturday. The high school is scheduled, the auditorium has a 5 o'clock school event scheduled. They do have space that the meeting could move to if it went beyond 5 o'clock. Hopefully that won't happen. Parking obviously is something to consider. The village school, people did park on the fields and things, or they were making a mess of things. There is more parking at the high school. Capacity of the room, there's more capacity at the high school. Then at Enfield Village School, you know, there are pros and cons. I mean, if people want to get up and speak at the microphone, they have to get down the aisle, but I guess they have to do that sitting in the chairs too, not to get to the microphone. Available technology, I did get in touch with Soundtown Music and they can do Enfield Village School if that's what you choose. But the high school also has, you know, technology available. I believe, did you find out from Seth that they can?
I haven't heard from him. We'll have to.
There's the possibility, we don't know yet, that they might be able to live stream the meeting. They do have the screen that will be a little easier for people to see than what we have at the village school.
We did hear a lot of complaints about that last year, that people couldn't see that little screen.
And the seats would be more comfortable at the high school, but because they're padded, but that's neither here nor there.
So would people getting up to speak have to climb over other people? Is there getting out of their seat?
If they.
Like in a movie theater?
If they all group together, yes.
Yeah.
The people who tend to speak more often could sit on the aisle. People who never speak can sit in the middle.
They do that now.
They do that now.
There's a lot of opportunities to sit, there's a lot of aisle, I would say.
And there's also more seats, so people could be more spread out. So that's. But they would have to do that at the village school too.
The one thing I would say as we discuss this is if we're ebbing and flowing on which one to do, if we never try the high school, we won't know if it's better or not. So just something to think about.
One other thing to consider, we do have to provide transportation for anything that's out of town. I would not foresee a great deal of.
We had talked about it when we decided to do it and the police had volunteered to give rides the first year to see how many people we need, because we don't expect many that need a ride.
And, you know, it's not like we have to do it back and forth all day. We can just get them there in the morning and bring them back in the afternoon after the meeting is over.
I think another consideration is that the high school location has already been posted multiple places. Right?
It was in the newsletter. I just wanted to give people a heads up. I was doing the newsletter kind of quickly with a lot of things going on. And I just thought, oh, I need to get out some, heads up information about things coming up for town meeting that they have to do this
Well,
month.
now it's multiple because I thought it was decided and I reposted it on my Slack.
Okay.
As popular as I am. The cat's out of the
Okay,
bag.
so it's
I just
multiple now,
worry
'cause that's more than
about,
one.
Confusing communication.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's good to have this discussion, so. Yeah, what do you, go ahead.
So just not trying to throw another monkey wrench, but just as I was noodling on it, I thought to myself, what is the Whitney Hall capacity upstairs? Because once upon a time we used to be there.
It's less than the school.
I'm sure it's less than the school. I'm just curious, do we have?
I don't know the full occupancy now, but it'll be, I'm guessing around 100 people.
We're not
maybe a
even
little
close
more
to
than that. So,
We'll get 100 people.
No, it's way too small.
Cost that one. Yep.
Yeah.
No, we used to cram ourselves in up there somehow. It's probably not a good idea. And I can tell you the slow elevator made it real interesting.
The event which is scheduled for the Enfield Village School is just shooting hoops. They do it on many Saturdays. They just get someone to open the gym and that's all that is. So it's not really an event. They do it on many, many Saturdays throughout the winter. They just get someone to open the gym and the kids can shoot hoops if they happen to show up. So you don't know that anybody's gonna show up. The other thing that I think worth of consider is the possibility of going to SB 2. If we go to SB 2, then I believe that the business meeting will be woefully attended in the future, and we may indeed be under 100. So I'd like to go a year and find out what the SB 2 thing does first, and then base the decision on whether or not we want to move. And also, I'd like to see it made a point of discussion at the town meeting, whether we should move to the high school or not.
I'm definitely in favor of moving to the auditorium. I think that they've had the SB2 discussion twice. It's the law. We're gonna have it again and it sounds like the petition has been well signed, so I'm sure we're having it again. But based on the feedback I've gotten from folks following the meeting, I feel pretty comfortable in saying that people I've listened to who sat in the hard chairs last year would vastly prefer the auditorium. So I'm fine with trying it for a year, and if SB2 passes, that's great for some people and not others, but I don't want to base my decision on gambling on that one.
I would consider trying it for a year without making a decision that is gonna be our permanent resting place. And then really at maybe at the end of the meeting or through some means, get significant feedback from the citizens. Where do you want to be next year? Okay, you've had it both ways. What's better? So I know a lot of people do like to have it in the town. It's a sort of an emotional connection.
One of the big ones was hearing too, right? Like not being able to hear was one of the
Yeah.
big complaints
Yeah.
I got.
I mean, I'm one of those people who like emotionally wants it in town,
Sure.
but I also, it is better seating, it's
Yeah.
better sound, it's better audio visual. It's casual, like when you run through the checklist of things you actually want in a room.
Yeah.
It's a better room.
We didn't pay a ton for it too.
Yeah, my heart says let's
Right.
have it in the town, but I think we probably ought to try it once
Yeah,
anyway.
I think that's,
See how it is.
Yeah.
And if everyone loves it, fine.
Mhm.
And we're gonna have to do SB2 every year for the rest of our lives.
I think I saw a hand up.
True.
A question I have, and that is when there's a valid vote, how would that happen in the harder?
I can, there's a couple layouts they can do if you like, I've seen the school do for deliberative. So there's ways to get around for people who are, have mobility issues. So I've seen them do it up on the stage and I've seen them do it up back. So I think that's something we could look at, but it's definitely, there's multiple options because there are ramps in addition to the stairs, which might not be obvious when you walk in, but there's good ramp accessibility.
Now, what does the town moderator
Keenan
think?
holds their meetings there, so
Is she
it
online?
works
Yes.
for them.
Susan?
Yeah, but I want it in town, that's one thing. And the other thing that's good is when there's lots of people all crowded there and they're all talking to each other and they're all discussing everything. That's good, it's comforting, it's community. I go to things at that auditorium and they don't know how to operate that fancy sound system. It's awful. If you're gonna use that, you've got to get somebody who can operate the sound system. And I can't see crawling over people to go out to the aisle, with the microphone when it's your turn to talk. And for me anyway, to walk up and down all those stairs. I wanted at the village school. I walk up there. It's important to be with a crowd of people squashed in. Think of all the people that when we met in tents in the cold out on the field.
I have a tendency to agree with you, Sue. I happen to agree with you that I believe there's a great loss of collegiality if we move it to the gym, to the auditorium. The collegiality and the conference and the conversations that occurred between breaks, or if we voted on one issue, then we took an opportunity to talk about upcoming issues. I believe there's a great deal of conversation and learning that occurred when we were able to converse with each other in the village school, and that won't happen when people are in their comfortable seats back at the auditorium.
I think you're right. I think you need, and the other thing is geography. I know we own part of that school, but it's in Canaan. I want the town meeting in Enfield. I think town meeting is the most important thing a town does. And I think I totally disagree with SB2 because nobody goes to their meeting and things get changed by 5 people. I think you need as many people in the town as will come and people will walk to the village school. Even me, I'll walk up that hill.
Not to mention at the auditorium, we lose the Lionesses.
So if we
I don't
wanted
know where
to
they're
have
gonna go.
at the auditorium, can we convince the school not to do hoop shooting that
Sure.
day?
That's just somebody opening the door. If there's nobody opening the door, they don't do hoops. That's a pickup game. That's all it is.
So we gotta talk to someone.
You might get 4 people to show up, you might get 8 people to show up, you might get no one to show up. It's a
The other
pickup
thing
game,
is
that's
we
all it
were
is.
Pretty much out of there by 3.
It's not
And
scheduled.
that was a long.
Well, that's
town
true.
meeting.
3 would be
Yeah.
hard going.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have a lot of time.
It's just shooting hoops.
Think of the
It's just-
days when
few kids shooting
people
hoops.
by horse and buggy came from God knows where in Enfield. They did it. It was important.
Out where I live.
Well, that's what I meant. God knows where.
The shooting hoops thing has always been there. It's always
Throwing
got
myself under the
canceled
bus.
at town meeting.
Well,
It's always been there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we need at least,
you're very convincing.
Oh, thank you, I try to be.
I'd like to have it back in the Enfield School one more year and make it a point of discussion, whether people
Alright.
would like to consider the auditorium. John makes a very good point. Try it, see what it's like. But on the other hand, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with trying it and then regretfully saying didn't work.
Well,
We
I
tried,
think your idea of bringing it up at town meeting and asking the people who were there. And people go to town meeting when there's an issue that's really important to them. If there isn't, if everything's going well in town, they don't go to town meeting because they're pleased with the way things are. If you have an issue, they'll show up. But they have to feel strongly about the issue. That's for anything.
so what is the pleasure of the board regarding location of town meeting?
What, do you wanna vote on this?
Yeah, well, at least a straw poll.
Trouble, I'll auditorium it.
Enfield Village School.
Enfield Village School.
I just like don't have very strong feelings on them. I need to hear more. I don't know. Do I have to?
Yes.
I need to think more. I don't like.
We really have to, for scheduling
Yeah.
purposes, nail this down.
We can give you 30 minutes.
I think I like John's suggestion that we could test it out and say, now you've had it both ways.
John's changed his mind on it.
I know, John of like 45 seconds ago, I was on board with that one.
The old John.
4 times.
Mm.
I think, I know that it seems like not a big deal that it's already in the town newsletter, but I think that we should get in the habit of doing what we say we're gonna do once it's been communicated to the town. That's really my strongest thing about it. I don't have a strong feeling for either place, but that one is that would be like my tipping point.
I think it's okay to have mistakes in communication and to correct them, and there's still plenty of time, and if
I
that's,
agree.
I'm just saying, if that's the big concern, I don't think,
It's not a
That's
big
your-
concern,
that's
but
just-
it's my, like, I.
but that's the
feel
deciding
strong
concern.
feelings Either way, so it's my deciding. concern.
Okay, so you're for the high school as well?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Come on.
The pressure. You know what this means, Eric?
Yeah, I do know that.
Listen for-
All right, so this,
But I have rationale, so that's,
yeah,
there's no.
But when would we ask people if they want to go back? Would we ask them at the auditorium, halfway through the meeting?
Casual discussion about it during.
I'd like to have a meeting at the Enfield Village School this year and have people in.
Conversation can be.
talk about it.
At either location. It's pressure's off me. Let's talk to Eric.
yeah, no, I was hoping I wouldn't have to do this.
Troy, big chair.
Yeah, no, it is.
You got 3 to what? You got 4 to 2?
No, it's 2 to 2,
2 to 2.
which is why everybody's looking at me now. And I'm also conflicted, because I like the idea of trying the better space. But not, well, and particularly like on a personal side, right? I'm another person who just walks to the town meeting, and that's fantastic.
I agree.
And I like having it in town. I like having it in our school, lack of a better term. So I think I'm gonna fall on the EDS side for tonight.
Can I have a very
Yeah.
strong feeling about using EVS in the technology sense. I
Yeah.
think we've done a really poor job making excuses about why we can't broadcast, and there's
Yeah.
absolutely no excuse for not broadcasting. So this board needs to put our money where our mouth
I
is
think that's fair.
and absolutely broadcast. Every year I hear an excuse about why we can't broadcast. Do it.
I think
Make a
that's
deal with the
that's a
school,
fair criticism.
Because if you guys can't get broadcast, this
Should be
is not
broadcast, no
ridiculous.
question. I
We
agree
have
there.
plenty of time to figure it out, but we're gonna spend an awful lot of money on sound and technology to be in EVS. Right? Because that is not something that exists there. So in a year where people are talking about being worried about 2 cents on their power bill, we're deciding here at this table to spend a lot more money. because it needs to be done, you have to pay the sound guy. You know, the high school has sound built in.
I think that,
Spend the money and make it available because it's not okay to not have a broadcast.
I think the technology, that's a very fair comment. And it ties right into what, when we're gonna have to figure out a lot of that for, Whitney Hall also, as we go forward. So maybe it accelerates a little bit of that.
Yep.
Discussion. Okay. So unless there's further discussion on that, I think that's decided, for this year. Okay. Warrant review. The draft of the warrant.
So I had a hard time understanding what was old and what was new, so I think I need to be like walking through it.
Okay. Well, we can, start with the preamble, which is just standard language, you know, saying where it is and all that stuff. Article 1 is just the Tuesday elections for various open positions, which I believe starting tomorrow, people can register for.
And what are the highlighted pieces mean?
Oh, those are things that have to be changed before it's finalized. So like, for example,
The dates also.
Yes.
right, the dates are not necessarily correct because that might be the correct date. Is it March 16th?
No.
Okay. But anyway, for example, Articles 1 through 7, the number of articles is not yet determined
Okay.
because various articles are going to, go ahead.
One quick thing on the declaration of candidacy.
Yeah.
We're closed this week.
Oh.
You can get the applications online. The clerk was working on that today. And then we have a drop box outside of town hall, or you can mail them in. We're not allowed to accept scanned email type versions unless they'll be open Monday to accept them.
Okay, so they have to be completed by hand and submitted in paper to be, okay,
And there is a drop box right outside the door at Whitney Hall, 23 Main Street. There's a black box that says town office.
Yeah, the black one, not the huge monolith that belongs to the library.
Other building.
yeah, and then, so I guess we can,
We have placeholders for the zoning articles, which I did not have any information on.
right. Yeah, so so on Tuesday, there'll be zoning articles, and then I think after that,
Green highlight.
That was a placeholder. I forgot to take that out. We've been kind of rushed with the office. So the wording below that, the big paragraph is the green is gonna go away.
Okay.
And originally we were looking at 2.9, but we're now at 2.75. And I do need an updated description, because the description in there is the old one from the first phase. So I need a new description for second phase. And I
So
do
isn't
just
that-
fix that number to.
The not more than 2.9 could match the 2.7.
It will, yes.
Okay.
so the first one, because it's a bonded article, that goes first. For the continued execution of the water and sewer plant.
Do we, or should we add anything there that if we're unable to get other financial resources, that it affects that bond, or that's a,
It'll be an SRF loan. If we don't get that loan, we don't get that loan, but we're really high on the,
yes, I'm aware, and we're
it's pretty much a guarantee.
pretty much optimistic, of course. I just didn't know if there should be some language in there that, because it says, depending upon preparation of applications for funding sources which become available, but I guess that language would be clarified anyway, particularly mentioning the possibility of loan. It doesn't really say that.
Well, they have to.
No, it's authorization to get a
Right.
loan.
Yeah.
That's what we need, and then we can move forward with the loan application.
And the way they have to do it is they have to put the total amount, because they won't give you grants in advance.
No, I know that.
So
I
you have
just
to
wanted to,
have, you have to have the authority to do the whole thing in order to qualify for grants to reduce the amount that you end up borrowing.
right, I just think that the article, the warrant article should perhaps mention, where the possible grants are coming from or something to that extent.
No, I don't think you put anything.
No,
about grants,
because you don't want to limit
because you may
yourself.
get none.
You and you legally can't promise anybody or kind of even look like you're making a promise. We can
expect
talk to
get
people
some,
about it,
we
but-
don't have anything.
Yeah. And you certainly don't want to limit where you can apply for grants to. All right, the Clean Water State Revolving Fund,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
it's $100,000 loan for the watershed management plan for Crystal Lake, but that does come with a guaranteed 100%
Forgiveness.
forgiveness once the project's done. So we'll have to front the money and then get forgiveness after.
correct. All right, then the change to the elderly exemption, do we need to?
We had started to have a discussion
Right.
about that in the spring and didn't conclude. I think that is a topic of
It's in your
discussion.
packet.
Right.
Yeah,
Just have that discussion over the next couple of meetings.
exactly.
You have numbers, you're gonna have numbers for us, like projection on why.
Were they not put in your packet?
There was
Okay.
information.
You have information in your packet.
in the
there.
packet.
Start having that discussion about it, then I can explain the possible future changes.
Let's go through the whole warrant article, and then we can come back to that. That's the
Yeah, that one's.
whole warrant. The energy program discretionary fund, that's what we just talked about. The community power, one of what we just talked about. And those are all first, presumably because they require ballot votes. Because then we come to the budget.
Well, I don't know that those do require a ballot.
Okay,
So
We'll
the
have to
Energy
check on
Committee
that,
ones
and
might
even
be
if
able
it
to-
does,
yeah, so those might be able to move. after
requiring
the
a paper
budget.
ballot, they can be moved around. You can
Right.
change how they order the articles.
Right, well, certainly the first two, the bond for the water, both the sewer. System and the clean water, those both require ballot votes. Right, so.
Yeah, the bonds
And
will
they're
have to go first.
Right, those have to go first, and then, so we have a choice on whether we put the budget after.
Yeah.
That, or,
I do think those other two, the elderly exemptions and the Energy Committee stuff could go after the
Yeah.
budget.
I think we should put, my view is we should put the budget as soon as we are allowed to. What's the,
So that should be at the top of the article, yeah.
Yeah.
It should be the first or second item.
well, in this case, it ends up being the third, because you have to
Yeah.
do the bonds have to
But
come.
we need to get into it very early in
Yeah.
the process. That's correct.
Okay, and just so it doesn't get missed, there's disabled exemptions and blind exemptions that you can look at as well for amounts. I didn't have a chance to get the wording for this, but
Mhm.
there's gonna be state required wording for that, which I would just put that in. Currently, the blind exemption is $15,000. And the disabled exemption is, let's see, $50,000, and there are some, income limits.
Yeah, those are on the spreadsheet you got as well.
Yeah, but as far as going through the, I think CIP should continue to follow the budget as it always has, so actually those two should move up.
Can you just mentally talk me through, like, the exemption, is it, so if you had a $250,000 home before, that's now $500,000 home with the reval, is it the exemption comes off the value of the home and then you're taxed on the residual?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was wrapping so really, because ours, most people doubled or possibly more. We're looking at town to town, but
Yeah, so if we increase the exemption to 79%, that's presented the median increase, that would actually keep the percentage the same.
Yeah.
And if you look at the fact that, like mobile homes had some of the highest increases,
yes,
which is also
Mhm.
perhaps the most likely scenario of somebody who would be using this exemption, like they're the folks that are hurting
Mhm.
the most off of that.
So there is a decision to be made on the CIP
Yeah.
article. So the budget committee has already seen this and they were not in favor of using the $4,107 So basically what happened is the funds that were closed at the last town meeting, the amount that we had estimated, what we thought was there, is what we had to put in the article to put into the CIP capital reserve fund after. So it was 114,000. In actuality, when we closed those funds, there was another $4,107. And it was suggested by the trustees of trust funds that perhaps the people would want to take that from fund balance and
put it in.
put it into CIP. But the budget committee is not in favor of that because our fund balance is low. It's still within the limits, but it's on the lower side.
And they thought it was such a small amount too, just to let that, it's mostly interest from those funds that accrued before we did it, just to let that fall into fund balance.
And just for completeness, CIP has not met since that happened, so they have not issued an opinion.
Now, the 579,368 that goes into the capital improvement program fund is established as a percentage increase over a previous year. Is that correct?
No, it adds, I think it's
That's a nickel.
26,400 or 900.
Per year, which that seems to be
Basically a nickel.
yeah, basically a nickel.
There might not be a nickel with the new tax rate, but.
So it has no reflection on current grant list.
No, it's a dollar amount.
Yeah. Because when it was originally established, it was based as a percentage of the grant list.
It was basically a nickel on your tax rate, but it's not going to be at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
There was some pretty complex forecasting that went into that. We might be doing some forecasting work on that front.
So regarding that, is there discussion specifically around that 4,000 from this
Right,
board?
do you want to have that come from unassigned fund balance or not?
Go to.
Or we'll just leave it in.
Going for whatever's easiest. on
So
it.
Was that still an estimate, the 4107, or has that been
No,
confirmed?
That's confirmed.
Yeah, so so basically what happened is $4,107 were placed into the general fund.
No, I know where it came
Okay,
from.
okay.
I'm just asking. if
And the question is whether we move that over to CIP,
Right.
because those were originally capital reserve fund.
And we moved the rest of them last year to CIP.
But there's two things. One is, do you move it to CIP? And then last year, we chose to do it in a way that reduced the tax rate last year. This would do the same thing, because there is the other option, just move it to CIP, but don't use it to reduce the tax rate. You could just actually, instead of doing 579, you
Yeah.
could move the 4,000 over and do 583. Right, you can actually go the other way with 4,100 coming from, and then your tax rate remains exactly where you want it to be. I think that the budget committee is basically assessing that the overall cost of doing that for $4,000 is not really gonna help CIP enough. It's not gonna help the tax rate in a meaningful way. It will hurt the designated fund. I think they've done a good analysis, and
I think,
I just think keeping it off is the cleanest, easiest way at this point.
Yeah, it's such a small amount, it really won't impact anything.
Right.
I also think it's been very clear from
Yeah.
sitting in meetings with the general public that people do not understand how accounting works.
Yeah.
And it terrifies them to see money moving.
Yeah.
And so this is just another thing they aren't gonna wanna see and they're not gonna understand.
Yeah, no, I think the budget committee's made a good recommendation.
Yeah, I think it's a good recommendation.
Do you have any comments on that, John, or did I summarize that fairly?
Very nicely done.
Okay,
So that will be stricken for
Yeah.
your next version.
Oh, look,
Yeah.
our meeting got shorter.
okay.
So the next article is to discontinue two funds, the Library Building Capital Reserve Fund. That we took out a good chunk of the money. I actually found out that the balance in that fund was 315,000, give or take. And we took out 244. So there's still a decent amount of money in that fund, but it really, I don't know,
Did we write the article to use that money?
we did not write the article to use that money. No, it would go into the unassigned fund balance. The problem that you have is that the purpose of the article, of the fund, is for a new library, and by the time And it also requires town meeting approval to spend, so you could do that.
Yeah.
You could have town meeting vote to spend that money on the library.
Yeah, to pull the loan down a little bit.
I mean,
Well, I think you have to use it on construction. I don't think you can't use it for a loan payment.
So we'd have,
So it's for planning, construction and furnishing of a new library.
Double check, but I still think we can do that because we have,
Yeah.
so we still have
We have bills
payments to be
to pay.
made.
yeah, and we'll have retainage that we're holding. and-
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and is the library trustees,
If another one of these moving money around, you could put it in to pay the retainage, which would lower the overall
right,
loan amount.
Yeah.
Paid that back.
and then assuming the library trustees have, you know, talked it through, I'm in favor of using it to pay for the construction of the new library, which is what it was intended for.
yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And then if we're using it to pay it down, it's money we aren't taking from the loan. If you don't take the total loan amount, it reduces your total liability.
So that doesn't answer the question of what we do with what's left in the capital
If you
reserve.
want to take, what you can do is you can close it and then you can take, you have a couple of options. You can either just have an article to spend the money on something and have the people vote for it. Or you can have it go, close the account, the money goes into the unassigned fund balance, and then like we did last year, then you can take the money from unassigned fund balance
Yeah.
and vote to use it.
I'd rather,
Certain way.
my personal view, go ahead, Shirley, before, yeah.
I can't hear.
Oh,
That
It's
it's
no.
back to me, but, how much did you say is in it?
Well, I was told by the trustees of trust funds, it was about $315,000. And we took out 244, which is what, there was a reason for 244. Oh, was it, that was in the warrant article, last year. So that's what, we took that money. So there's still a good chunk left. It's not quite $100,000, but.
We're supposed to under budget on the project. So can that go towards the principal to bring down the amount of the loan?
No, you cannot use it for debt service. It has to be for planning, construction, or furnishing.
So what was your idea? So I couldn't hear this.
So,
We can use it to pay some of the construction bills, which would in the roundabout way would lower the overall loan payment because the extra money that we have from that could go to pay principal. So
Because that's what we want to do. We promised the town that we would lower that amount that they have to pay. As much as we can.
and my view is we should have a warrant article, we should, as soon as it's closed, the next warrant article should be to spend the money in the appropriate way on the construction, of my view.
yeah,
And I would like to see at least the library trustees have, you know, notification that they can discuss it as well, because it is something with it. Like, if we're wrong, I'd like to hear it from them.
And if we could get it into
Absolutely.
one article in any way. we're
That'd be great,
very
yeah.
good.
you can't,
You
you can
can't,
either
you
have,
have to-
you can
yeah.
start with an article just to spend the money. You know, you wanna withdraw.
So you can't
the
spend
amount.
and close, you have to do two
You
separate.
have to close and then you can take it from unassigned, or you can just spend it. You can have an article to spend the whatever we think the balance is. We're not gonna know exactly. And there might be a residual leftover amount, but you can
That's
do
next year.
that and then close it next year.
I think we need to just be done and close it before it gets more confusing. We forget something.
Yeah, and then we'll deal with the small residual next year.
that could fall in the fund balance like the other one.
Yeah, it'll be another $4,000 or something like that. That's what it'll be.
So we will draft up an article to take whatever the amount we have there to go into from fund balance to.
And then get some feedback from the trustees.
And confirm that that's acceptable to the trustees.
Yeah. Then the sidewalk reserve fund, construction capital reserve fund,
So that's where you spent the balance of the account. So,
That one's
Right.
right here. It's,
yeah, it's
it's
here,
empty.
That's just,
yeah, that's what I
that's
thought.
just pennies if anything, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if there's any little interest, it'll be nothing. and
Yeah.
It can fall into.
Yeah.
the general fund.
Anything, yeah.
and then, of course, just as a placeholder, because it's anticipated, SB 2's on there by petition.
Oh, the petition hasn't come in yet.
No,
Right.
It's coming.
But we
but
expect it.
we've heard talk.
Yeah.
Will this serve as a buzz?
And then, of course, there's the last one to hear reports, and then you can discuss at that point in case of town meeting if you feel like you want to. You can change your mind between now and
Okay, and then on, okay, that's the total warrant. So for the exemptions, when do we have to make? Because of,
Probably your next meeting.
okay, so we have to make a decision on
We
our
can
next
have a
meeting.
discussion tonight.
Yeah.
If we need to gather some more information, we can do that and make a decision.
Is there more than just this? That's what I was kind of.
No.
Oh, okay, that's it. I was kind of looking like for projections and.
And I can really,
Okay,
I can talk about that a little bit, but
Yeah.
we didn't do it here, but when I was in Claremont, we did a widespread research on the exemptions and the finance limits and, what we came to a conclusion was no town had any scientific type method of doing this. They just chose an amount. And so everybody's kind of there and then they kind of do this. They look at what everybody else is doing and try to make a basis. What we did do, I worked with, Steve Hamilton. I don't know if you guys know him, but he was really high up in the DRA for a long time. He was our contract assessor and working with him there, we did make an equation that used, CPI and SNAP limits and a bunch of different things that are known numbers to be able to use median income and stuff in your town to move the rate and to try to keep it with inflation and those types of things. But it's all based on the original numbers that you choose. So we have to look through this year, and if we want to do a little more work next year, we can do that. But once we feel we have a pretty good number of where we want to be, then I can plug that equation in and on an annual basis, show you guys where we need to be, and then we can make a decision when we want to put a warrant article on to change those things.
what's our average home value in town?
I don't know what our average is. Last time I looked, we were a little over 400,000. I know the state's cleared 500,000. on
Yeah, I saw
average, so we're probably pushing close to that, somewhere in that 400,000 to 500,000 range for an average home.
I mean, we were 300,000.
We were over 4. I know.
I mean, originally before the reassessment, and then we estimated the reassessment at 79%, so 300 times 79% plus 79%, that's where you are. You're right there.
I can get that number if we need that number.
I'm just thinking about, like, trying to think about as we set it, you know, what are we doing to help people? What's our goal? So if our goal is to say, this is our base and like our base income, right, where we'll consider you, your maximum income or we'll consider you, is what we're doing helpful? Right? Is it keeping anybody in their home or are we just doing it because of?
That is the one recommendation from Julie, is that we raise these income limits, because we have a lot of people that are just crossing over that line where they've always gotten this exemption and now they don't. And we haven't changed it in a long time. And if you look at this, my initial thought, I started looking at, well, maybe we remove the high and low and find an average, some of those, but I also, just looking through this and without really trying to gather a whole bunch of data, Canaan's levels look pretty decent. I mean, they're kind of close to those averages. In most places, they're higher than ours. Couple places they're the same. We can do a little bit more data, but looking at those, we're
Yeah.
definitely raising ours quite a bit in a lot of cases. I think it's probably something fair.
And how much, do we have somewhere here, how much we, like last year, or like in the last couple of years, did I miss it? How much? I'm having a hard time tracking, like,
We didn't.
I was looking for like, how much did we spend on it? So did we get like 5 applications? Did we get 20 applications? Did it cost us $500,000? No.
So if we had 16 applications overall, I cannot give you a breakdown,
No,
but
that's
our 2023 report tells us that we had $916,200 in ultimate exemptions.
and that's the exemption, that's not lost revenue. Right, so then that would be times the tax.
Everything.
And when we do that, it's only the town portion, or do we eat the school portion and all that? How does that work? Because we still have to pay the school the total
It comes
amount,
off-
right?
Yes,
So that it's not like it exempts them from the school tax. The rest of the town people who are paying the rest of the tax are subsidizing the school and the county tax.
Well, yeah, all of it gets
Right.
redistributed. to
Redistributed,
other-
yep, okay. That's really not that much.
It's not a lot of money.
No, and that's kind of like, I'm trying to get an order of magnitude in my head
Yeah.
about how much money we're talking about.
Then, so my view is, especially given the reevaluation, I think we should take a look at the exemption, at least keep pace with that.
Yeah.
And then I think the incomes do need to be looked at in the context of the last few years.
Mhm.
As well.
and if you want to keep disabled exemptions, for income limits the same, in 2023, there was 400,000 in disabled exemptions.
I think on the income limit, it would be relatively easy to take the number, figure out the year we put those in. And then take the amount, like income has, there's good data from the government about general income increases, right? So we should be able to say like, if this was 20 years ago, we've had X percent increase. And then ask ourselves, are we comfortable with that too, right? But that would be like a data-based approach, like if once upon a time this number was okay and income increased on average this much over that time period, we would be at Y point. So that we could look at
I
it.
think it'd be a good data point to look at. Like I said, you don't know that this number was ever.
No, we don't, and I think that's kind of where I'm like,
I'm sure last time it was based on what the towns around are doing. and
Exactly.
some sort of-
and like Canaan hasn't had a reevaluation, a full reval like we have, so, but their numbers. Yeah, there's no good way to do it.
The income
like that.
limits shouldn't really be
Yeah.
affected by that, but the exemption could be.
Right, I mean, if you previously had a $50,000 exemption,
Right.
and now your property's 100,000
Right.
instead of 50,000, it's a big impact.
Well, I'm looking at like the net income of less than $36,000. Like 20 years ago, $36,000 wasn't bad. Right now, $36,000 put you out on the sidewalk.
Right, so we don't have to make an exact decision tonight, but why don't we get I guess you already have the drafted articles, but if people
Yeah,
have
we can
specific
change that.
questions, can you send them to Ed? And then we'll have it on our agenda next time to finalize and make a decision. If you have specific data or information you'd like, please just send it to Ed and he'll do his best to pull it together.
I asked for what I was looking for.
Yeah.
so I'm good.
Yeah, no, I know, might be handy to put it in, right? But yeah, but you did, so, all right.
I go to Ben.
Is there any other discussion of the drafted warrants for tonight?
It's not on the agenda, but we have to think about a cover for this report as well. Can do the public safety building?
We talked about doing the public safety building because we did Whitney Hall on it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do you want a rendition or do you want us to go snap a picture?
Is it ready for a photograph?
The siding's up.
If you get it from the right angle, yes.
And we can wait a few weeks.
I even
You
think
can't
during,
shoot the overhead doors.
I even think during construction picture would be
Yeah,
a
okay,
good picture to commemorate history of the town.
so let's do it.
Maybe put a fire truck in the photo or something.
Pardon, I'll get a verbatim.
I can make that happen.
I'm just saying, there are things you can stage.
We can get a couple cars there,
Yeah.
a police car and a fire truck.
Sure. Sure.
And have somebody other than me take the picture. because-
That reminds me.
There are people waiting patiently
Yes.
for us to get moving.
All right, so Mascoma Lakeside Park Committee is next. All right. Well, thank you for your work, is the first thing. From Lakeside Park's the greatest thing that happened in this town in the last 15, 20 years. So, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Patty Freed. I'm here on behalf of the Lakeside Park Committee. We've appreciated the support the park has received and the opportunity for us to enhance and maintain this really important community space. The park is still in its infancy, and as with any new endeavor, there's still much work to be done to ensure it reaches its full potential. Over the past several years, the park committee has coordinated hundreds of volunteer hours to support the effort. The volunteer work days have been instrumental in supplementing the work of our often short-staffed DPW and have contributed significantly to the park's progress and aesthetic. I was sorry to hear tonight that Nicolette is no longer with us. She was great to work with. We're here today because we were asked to meet with the select board when we attempted to add a much-needed new member to our committee. Despite what is shown on the town website, our committee is currently composed of only 4 members. And with the many ongoing and future projects at the park, we would really value more help and support. There are still several important tasks that remain unfinished at the park. We're eager to help facilitate their completion. These include continuing with removal of invasive species, planting a pollinator garden, relocating the existing Department of Transportation garden beds to more suitable locations to ease in the mowing for the DPW, and to continue the scheduled watering program that was in place last summer to ensure the health and longevity of all the newly planted trees and shrubs. We believe that increased collaboration with the Conservation Commission and the Recreation Department would be beneficial in developing educational programming at the park and play a key role in conserving and protecting this really important natural resource, ensuring that it's preserved for future generations. We envision programs that promote lake smart practices and actively engage our youth. We hope to foster a deeper appreciation for the natural resource and to encourage responsible stewardship of the park and the lake. As we continue to move forward, we have yet to see where we stand financially now that all outstanding bills should be accounted for, and understanding our financial position will help us plan our next steps more effectively. Looking ahead, we're in the process of establishing a Friends of Mascoma Lakeside Park group to encourage broader community involvement and provide additional support for the park's long-term care. However, this effort will take some time to implement, and in the meantime, adding 1 or 2 new members to our committee would provide much-needed assistance and allow us to maintain the momentum on these important projects. Thank you for your time. We remain committed to working collaboratively with the town to ensure that the park continues to be the beautiful, well-maintained and welcoming space for all. So we still feel like we have a lot of work to accomplish, and to take away our committee at this point, we just feel like a lot of things would drop that we're actively working on.
And do you see, does the committee see a time when it would transition to just to being a formalized friend group versus a formal committee? Because
Yes, so we feel like this next season is really important going into the spring. And that would give us like almost not quite a year, but you know, at least into next 2026, maybe then we would have a friends group established.
Mhm.
There's also a concern about, you know, the liability of volunteers if we're having work days. Right now, it's very easy, where, you know, as we can do that ourselves as, I'm not sure what is our title or how we're signed as a committee for the town. So just things like that. We wonder how that's gonna work.
The process for volunteers would be very much the same.
The same.
We just, they'd have to fill out the form and just so that they're acknowledged volunteers.
Okay.
Same as we do for like the trail type
Yes,
ones.
exactly.
Well, and I see the same thing with the Friends group. I mean, if they want to formalize a 501(c)(3) or something, that could take time, but I don't think that's even needed. I think just a group that says we're the Friends of the Lakeside Park can do exactly what they're doing now. All it does is remove them from the cumbersome rules of having to take minutes, having to make sure that they have a quorum, they can have a meeting, and I see everything else being exactly the same as it is now. Might not have staff in attendance at every one of their meetings, but definitely if they wanted to meet with staff or talk, we would have someone there to do that. So I saw it as an easier way for them to complete the mission that they're trying to do instead of having to meet with us in a public space all the time and have staff here to run the meetings.
Would they be able to make significant decisions on their own as a friends group
Like what? I don't know that they're making.
about about redesigning some parts of the park?
I mean, we've given
Came
them we give them a lot of latitude to work with DPW and redesign the park and do things now, and that would definitely be fair to say. I mean, everybody has done wonderful work there, and, you know, the volunteer hours are greatly appreciated. You know, we can still coordinate and give them a liaison at DPW and Parks and Rec. Like it, but I mean, that's the only way I saw it. You know, we've had a lot of meetings where, we don't have a forum, you know, we technically can't have a meeting, and this would make that where the 3 or 4 of them could meet at the park anytime they wanted to do plans and not have to warn meetings to do that. I think it'd be a lot easier for them. I understand having the formal committee, but it also slows a lot of things.
You also could add somebody anytime you wanted without having to come sit in front of us, fill out a form, like you could be like, hey, and it would give somebody, I know from a standpoint of managing volunteers for a lot of years, sometimes if you get them through the door quickly the first time, you get to keep them, and if you have too much red tape, they go and do something else. So, and sometimes we have a lot of red tape because we have to follow state law.
Is there a clear sort of mechanism for the town to acknowledge a friends group that's not a formal committee? So that,
I think we can do that. I put one in your packet that if you decided to do this, you could disband the committee and charge me with working directly with them and supporting a friends group and the work in the park. And then we could do that. We could advertise in the newsletter that they're looking for people to help, those types of things, to continue working.
And typically, when you start a friends group, since I've done it before, you can't just use another organization's name or say you're a friend of. The Secretary of State, when you're filing your business, requires a letter from the town. We would be the ones who would have to issue it.
yeah, but we're also just talking potentially not having they wouldn't necessarily have to form a 501.
No, if they wanted to.
Right, no, I'm just,
Yeah.
but then you get into how is something formally organized, how is it formally recognized?
Yeah. If we wanted to do fundraising, we could still do it through the town.
Yeah, that would all still.
Yeah, that was actually gonna be another, I was gonna ask that question.
So that trust fund would still exist, that's not.
So we could still apply for grants as we have and continue that way.
So the town could work with you and apply for grants.
Yeah. So David, your point?
I don't know if it still exists, but at the point when, Kate's mother and, others were, developing the Shaker athletic teams, there was definitely a friends of Shaker Fields or some other similar name.
They were on the Recreation Commission. They were actually on the Recreation Commission. There were people who volunteered with them, but the driving members were Recreation Commission members. But that was a pretty different.
Long time ago.
Yeah, I was one of those unacknowledged volunteers. I got volunteered.
The other piece too is that it would be really great to collaborate more with the Conservation Commission and with the Parks and Recreation, especially if we want to do programming down the road. So I'm not sure how we can integrate that as well.
We had talked a lot about when we talked about doing Soak Up the Rain, and the Conservation Commission had been actively interested. I know also Shaker Museum has approached conservation, and so that continues to roll through. So I think it's really just a matter of getting time on the books to do that work. And I know we had some, and then it kind of fell off the books for scheduling reasons, but I think we do need to do that piece. I think Shirley's the keeper of the agenda items for conservation, and I think we have room, don't we? Or some, okay, yeah.
To add us to the agenda or to work directly with the park?
So conservation over is all conservation in Enfield, but to come in and have a conversation and get that started back up again,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of interest in doing that work. And also, we've been talking about, maybe looking at forming more of a garden type club that would cover not just the park, but the town, and making it so that the resources that people come and they're like, oh gosh, I wish I could do this, get connected with the needs. It would be a really good spot to do it.
Recreation program would be working directly with the recreation director.
Yes.
Discussion with the board on this.
No, I think that, its written up recommendation is a good one. I think it'll provide the guidance that the committee should have as a friends group, and that they'll still have all the contact information and prerogative that they need to establish among conservation or rec board.
How do you feel after this discussion? So my hesitation is that we do not have a friends group established yet. And while we have a small committee, we still meet, we're very dedicated, and we get things done. So my worry is that we won't have a formal organized group of people working. It's gonna be a whole new group, kind of trying to recruit people to help. I don't think we'd have a problem getting people who want to be part of the friends group for the park. But right now, we do have an organized committee. And so, yeah, we know when we need to meet, we know what our jobs are. We all take our jobs very seriously. So there's a lot of movement and activity still. So that's my fear, is that that's gonna drop away. That we may lose that momentum.
Comment, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Terry Lynch, I'm on the committee. I think we just need some time to develop this friends group and transition from a committee to a friends group. So I would hate to see us sort of just sever the connection right now, because I'm afraid we might just all,
Here's the problem. If we don't end the and this comes from someone who's done the friends thing before. So if we don't end it, you guys can't meet outside of a public meeting to do this organizational piece. Right? It's like a catch-22, because you have to meet in public if you're committee members, and you have to have minutes, and we have to send staff members. So it's one of those interesting pieces. Like, a couple of you could meet, but if you really want to start a friends group, you need to be able to meet with a larger body. I would hope your people would stay, because it sounds like everybody I know is awesome, right? So that's my worry, is that does the town have to take on responsibility of chaperoning it through that whole process?
Well, yeah, so I mean, I think that this is why we're invited you here to have this conversation. So we can get a sense of how people on the committee feel. Go ahead.
We definitely don't have to make the decision tonight.
Yeah, so,
We can have the discussion and come back
so
next meeting or next month.
I mean, sort of where I am is I think we do need, it is important to sort of transition to a friends group. I'm not in a hurry to do that, but I don't want to wait. I mean, honestly, I think that over 6 months should be plenty of time, or even 3 months should be plenty of time to sort of make that transition and hopefully have the current members feel comfortable with that. I mean, I would think my suggestion would be sort of a 3-month timeframe to make that transition. Go ahead, David.
Having been on the committee in the past, and looking at the recreation side of the park, which is a huge success. I think that tying it rather than to a specific time, it's arbitrary, 3 months or 4 months from now, taking it through the coming season, till fall, till fall, make that transition by fall. Makes more sense to me than to do it before it even gets started. But I would say that the constraints of the quorum or something we struggled with some then, and we're just here now, and that it does provide some limits on planning and activities, particularly when it's a small committee.
Thank you. All right, what is the pleasure of the board for tonight? Do we want to direct, sort of informally direct Ed to work on a formal transition plan over the next couple of months, or do we wanna?
I'm wondering about taking this recommendation and incorporating like a time and date certain into it, so it doesn't just ban today, but giving it a time and date certain, so that we have a plan in place. We say like, I don't know if it's September 30th or August, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it gets through the season, we have a time and date certain, we have a goal to work towards. And everybody is on the same page, and then maybe they come back to us because it's a time and date certain, and they say, wow, we just found out X, Y, Z, and we need to change that date. We could still have that discussion. We can always put it back on the table,
I think
but
that
I'd like to
accomplishes-
formalize.
Yeah, no, that would accomplish a transition period.
What's the opinion of the existing committee for when they would like to become a Friends group?
Like the springs and summer season is really important to be very eyes on, especially with all the new plantings that went in. I think the fall would be a nice natural transition.
So you're aware that you'll have to live with certain restrictions until you form the Friends Committee based on the RSA,
They've been doing that now.
which you've been doing. It limits you ever so slightly until you get to the Friends Committee aspect.
Technically, you
Okay.
can't even go, I'll hang out and plant plants without posting it. I mean,
Yeah.
technically,
So if you're prepared to move to the Friends Committee, which is, I think, a good move forward for you,
Yeah.
it is really up to you to tell us when you're ready to do it.
Sounds like Kate's suggestion of September 30th would work, and you can always do it sooner as well.
Right.
Labor Day.
I was thinking Labor Day.
I'm comfortable with
Are you comfortable with Labor Day,
any date.
September 1?
Let's go to the end of September.
Yeah. September 30?
Yeah, just again, I'm really thinking of growing seasons.
I also picked September
That
30th.
makes sense.
I'll tell you why I picked September 30th, because I've been obviously helped with an incorporation before. And so that's enough time to do your articles of incorporation, to get your filings in the Secretary of State, and potentially get your approval back from the IRS. If you wanted to go that route, you don't have to, but I'm saying that would be enough time to do that. If you started.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I like to have my crops all done by then.
so one of the questions I have as well is, do you need an attorney to form a friends group? And
Personally, I don't think it even never
No.
needs to be that formal.
You don't?
I think
I
you can
don't
write
think so.
on there, we are now the friend of.
And you're gonna operate under the 501c3, that is the town.
No,
No, that,
You just dissolve your group.
you can be friends and go for a walk around the lake in the same section, you know, not everything has to be legal.
Formal legal group, a friends group with the.
so some of the important things, like the trust fund that people donate to
Mhm.
and expends money on the park will remain in place. So that's a very important
Absolutely.
piece. And I think that Ed's correct. We would try to find a way that is the least administratively
Mhm.
cumbersome
Yeah.
to do it. And I think kind of points out that a transition period, September 30th should be I mean, again, the date can change, but that's a very reasonable date. So please go ahead.
I'm Jenny Koberger and I'm on the committee too. And, I guess the thing that hasn't been talked about is, what is the difference in handling, funds? If we want to buy plants, which is what comes up at this time of year, as we start ordering plants to be filling spots. Something didn't grow, something needs happening there in a certain area. You know, how do we do that? And now, and then also as a friends group, you know, do we just go directly to Ed and say,
If you keep the funds in the town's trust fund, if you will, it would be,
Exactly the same.
it would be pretty much exactly the same, but it would be as easy as, hey, we want to do this, can we order some plants? And they'd be ordered.
but would there be a separate budget for the Muskogee Lakeside Park? Or it's coming out of the budget for Muskogee Lakeside Park, or is it right
It would be money in the fund and.
in the fund?
Yeah.
So we just have to ask you how much money's in the fund, do we have enough money to do X, whatever?
We need to ask you that.
And since it's one of my favorite topics,
I don't see any.
you have a purchasing policy.
Really,
Okay,
So-
except you wouldn't have to warn a meeting.
Right, so what would, so it would basically be the same as now. We have a purchasing policy for the town. It would go through that. And as it is, the funds in the trust fund are expended through select board action. And so that would continue just the way it has, that
There, Their town manager approved.
Oh, their town manager, okay,
Yeah.
I take that back, I
We
stand
can
corrected.
move a little bit quicker.
Right, so their town manager, so there would be no change in the way that trust fund operates. Because the operation of that trust fund is independent of the existence of the committee.
And presumably donations would go
Be the same, yeah.
to that fund for the
Yep.
town.
Yeah,
And it will be
exactly.
held separately.
I see no-
Until expended.
And I see no, certainly what we're discussing, and I don't see any change in the way
Not at all.
the expenditure side of things would work.
Nope.
For that.
Very straightforward.
If you were to decide to incorporate, then you're looking at, you're gonna have some expenses, like you're gonna have to pay somebody to help you with your accounting, right? And you're going to have at least a postcard filing with the IRS. And so that's the beauty of not necessarily incorporating and continuing to work with the town to take the funds is we're already paying for all of the accounting. And there's no liability insurance, right? Like you sign up as a volunteer. I think it just makes it less cumbersome, is my view.
So Kate, would you like to,
Yeah, I said it, right? And then I didn't write down what I said. Okay,
September 30th.
I know, but I'm trying to figure out where I put it in.
Are we making a recommendation now, or
Oh,
are we
no,
just
I got it, I
tabling
got
this
it.
until the last
I
meeting
got
of
it.
September?
no,
I'll
I
make a motion.
think Kate's gonna make a motion, is
Okay.
what she's suggesting.
I'm going to make a motion to thank the past and present members of Mascoma Lakeside Park Committee for their hard work and dedication. And move to disband the official committee as of September 30th, 2025. And further charge the town manager to work with members of the current committee to formalize a friends group that will work with the town for ongoing upkeep and changes to the park.
That's fine, except you eliminate the word current committee because it may change between now and September.
Wow.
They're adding 2 people.
Exactly.
Sure, we can just take out the word current. I'm like, don't really care.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there discussion of the motion on the table? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And if any of those trees die within the first year, please let Ed know quickly.
People watching.
I'll bet you have.
Been babying them.
I'll be working with you to do a lot with voting.
Those trees are expensive.
And it also.
And they all came with a 1-year warranty, so.
If they sneeze at you, it's
And
probably.
just the final, is it also means if people would like to join the committee to be part of this transition, they can certainly do that, and then they would be part of the transition over the next 9 months as well.
Okay, excellent. And actually, I believe, there was a resident who did, send in information. I think it's Susan Weaver, and she is ready to step in if once she's approved.
She submitted an application?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm sending it in my email.
It's on,
it was in November.
Yeah,
it went to the select board a couple months ago.
Oh.
This meeting was going to be
dissolved. Right,
So that would be great.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out the path
So-
forward.
yeah, so can you just check to make sure she's still
I
interested?
think you guys,
Can we do it Mr. Knight?
yeah, let's just appoint her.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys
Yeah, I
have-
like
Yeah, I'm perfectly
Done.
fine with that.
It's
I mean,
Susan-
we saw
it's
the
Susan
application in our
Weaver,
package
So-
previously. They were very.
What was her name again?
Decided to hold off on the appointment for this discussion.
Do we need a motion for that?
But when we get to applications, we could do it now.
I would just do it.
Just don't do it now.
Let's do it now, get it on with. I move that we, appoint Sue Weaver to the Lakeside Park Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. That was really helpful.
Yeah.
It was really helpful.
Police cruiser purchase.
Hello. All right, so, we applied through the CIP, we have the new cruiser program in place. This will be the year that we add our 7th cruiser as approved by through the CIP and the presentations and all that stuff. The reason I'm here to talk about it tonight is just that we're constantly working with our distributors and the people that we purchase from, and they actually reached out to us and said that, one, they have a hybrid cruiser that we could snap up now, which, when it comes time right after a town meeting, stuff like that, they're kind of hard to find. And I don't know how much you guys know about it, but, last year in 2024, they actually didn't produce any, hybrids. And so, we have the opportunity to get a 2025 hybrid that's available now. And they will give us a discount on outfitting it, so we're gonna save if approved by the select board, we'll save approximately $3,000 to $5,000 to get the cruiser now. The reason I'm asking is because working with CIP, it's not gonna go on a warrant article this year, it's gonna be paid cash through the CIP.
That's right.
I'd like to save the town $3,000 to $5,000 and, grab it now. That's what I'm here.
You need a motion for that?
Guys have to authorize expenditure.
I move that we expend the money as recommended by the chief to purchase the new cruiser as specified verbally
We have a dollar,
as soon as possible,
we have an up to dollar amount.
up to the amount allocated by the CIP.
Can you do that, or I can pull it up. It'll take a minute though.
I assume you're gonna logo this one up?
Yes.
And if you could add to that, that the funds will come from the CIP Capital Reserve Fund, so
And that the funds will come from the CIP Reserve Fund.
Whitney's got it.
Whitney's really good at it. Really good.
What would we do without
We
you?
have a race.
It's there.
But while we're waiting, adding this one, we'll finalize that all of our patrol vehicles will be the hybrid vehicles.
Yeah.
And, a great, gas mileage turnaround in the hybrids, and each generation just gets a little bit better.
Really?
Yeah.
They're gonna keep making that for a little while, do you think?
They are, the only reason they didn't make any last year is they were moving the plant. So it's still in the US, but they moved it, I think I know where it is, but I'm probably wrong. I think they moved it to Texas or.
But it's north of the Rio Grande.
So, what's that?
It's north of the Rio Grande.
So,
The parts coming in aren't.
it's,
In an amount not to exceed $78,000.
In an amount not to exceed $78,000.
Thank you.
And that includes the outfitting of the new car. So this is the last one on our CIP list that has to have all the new equipment.
Yeah.
It's like some of the more expensive.
Was there a second?
And we knew that.
Second, we have a second from Alice. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
When can you get it?
what's that?
When can you get it?
Talk for 5 minutes with what I have, and then I could leave.
Honestly, chief is the next two items.
Yeah,
It'll take me like 3, go ahead, I can.
Well, do your thing first.
have a 1 minute.
I need to.
1.5.
The first thing is, I was speaking with a prominent member of the town over at the museum, and she told me that we don't need a food pantry. Nobody in Enfield is hungry. Everybody has a car and can go to Canaan. And the thought was, I would like to bring up the fact that we need to get half the food pantry back to Enfield, and I wanted to do it publicly.
Okay.
And so now I've done that, and I hope it'll be in the minutes. We need the food pantry here. Maybe it could go in the bottom of your building when you leave.
That's it, the town.
Yeah,
Talking around to you.
There have been discussions to that end.
Yes.
But no decisions have been made. So thank you for that comment.
There's certainly been no discussion by this board about eliminating the food pantry in Enfield. In fact, anytime it's come up, it's been supported.
in Hughes Park and this, they gotta have a place for their refrigerators and freezers and a place in the winter.
So
I volunteered the first year it was open, and there are hungry people in
for
there.
the sake of time and.
Yes,
for being-
that was it. This is the thing this is the filter from the water system that I put in at a cost of $734.99. The filters are supposed to last a minimum of 6 months. I changed the first filter the second week in November. I gave it to Jim. He has not sent it. He wanted it because he wanted to see what was in it. And he had, when I saw him last week, he said he hadn't sent it. I changed this filter on the 18th of December. This is the crap that's coming in my water from the public water system, for which I am paying full price. And if you don't believe me, here's Brian Donnelly's invoice. And that's what I had to say. I would like real water clean. First clean, now it's got a filter. Cost me $700. Paid full price.
Thank you for coming in, Susan. All right.
The chief needs to.
Yes, yep, we have the highway, safety grants for additional funds of $5,110. This is another more good news.
Yeah, we're good. So, Lieutenant Fry was in here back in October that we had received a grant from, Highway Safety that allows us to do some additional patrols to target, cell phone use, speed, DWI, stuff like that. Well, we also found a grant, Lieutenant Fry, I want to give credit where credit's due, found a grant also that would help, potentially pay 70% of the, MDT, which is the mobile data terminal, which is the computer that's going to be in that new cruiser that we just approved. And so that's the additional funding of $5,110, because it's a state grant. It got added on to that same thing, that same one for a total of $13,525 total for this year for state grants for, those controls and that, laptop. So I just need the budget committee to approve, not the budget committee, excuse me, the select board to approve the funding, accepting the funding from the state.
I shall make that motion to accept the additional highway safety grant funding of $5,110 to be used for a mobile data terminal for the 2025 cruiser for an amended total grant of $13,525, and hereby authorize the town manager or their designee to take such action and execute all documents necessary.
He's really good at this.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a question. So, how much is a mobile data terminal now? How much do they cost?
6,000, so it's the
I know they've gone up a lot.
yeah, so the equipment is a little over $6,000, and then there's like a little bit more for installation, so it covers a little more than 70% of purchasing the computer.
Okay, yeah, no, I was just curious. I know they're very expensive. It's not a lot.
Yeah.
And I would like to recommend we invite Nate or do whatever he needs done so we can go home.
Well, we have a motion on the table, so let's vote on that motion. So,
Well, I guess we could.
so, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Opposed? Okay,
but I've been sitting here
Can we do
feeling
the second
guilty.
motion right while we're at the same page?
yeah, so we have another grant.
Let's just do that one real quick.
So just real quickly, this was, again, a grant from the county commissioners for the glass that was mentioned during your, during the town manager's report, so that was already sort of explained.
I move to accept the Grafton County ARPA grant in the amount of $19,046 to be used for ballistic windows at the Public Safety Building, and hereby authorize the town manager or their designee to take such action and execute all documents necessary.
Second,
Second.
In each case, it said executive all documents.
it did say.
All in
Oh,
favor?
it did,
Aye.
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 I will note that the 19046, thanks to the fast work of the chief, is the most amount that any town in New Hampshire in the county got. Nobody got more than $19,046.
All right. So we have, board and committee applications. We have 3 of them this evening. I don't think we need to belabor, but I'll apologize, everybody. I made a mess of things last meeting. I'm sorry. Kate, I think rightly pointed out that we should have some sort of, standard process for this, and we won't go through it tonight, but, I think that's a good idea.
I started working on it, just
Yeah.
because I'll get to something.
Yeah,
We
so,
learned something, right?
so anyway. We are where we are now. First one up is Nate Miller for the planning board.
I will make a motion to appoint Nate Miller to the planning board.
I'll second that.
Is there discussion? Okay,
He's as good as you get.
absolutely.
Eric,
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you for sitting through the entire meeting.
It's all good. I've just come from the old school where if you're on the agenda, you should probably be here in case something comes up. So
You're a patient man.
Thank you for your patience with me.
I will go eat dinner now, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
All right.
you.
Next up, we have, Jerry Roberts for, the Energy Committee.
Exciting. I make a motion to appoint Jerry Roberts to the Energy Committee.
Second.
Is there discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Jerry? And then we have Timothy Turner for Recreation.
Taekwondo on the rec commission.
Make a motion to appoint Timothy Turner to the Recreation.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Very cool applicant pool.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Very Uniquely
Yeah.
qualified.
it is.
Separate from the applicant pool, I just wanted to say how much I really appreciate this new form.
Oh,
Thank you.
All
I
right,
do like that. It
Uh,
goes automatic.
the elderly exemption abatements.
Before we get into that, I think we have one more. Do we need to do a motion to accept this $2,000?
Yes.
It's on the list.
I know, but I just wanted to
Well-
skip because that may take a few more minutes.
Well, what I was gonna say is we sort of already discussed the elderly exemption abatement. Oh,
Well, this.
so these are the
this is
actual
this
abatements.
is the
Yeah,
abatement.
these are the abatements and they could
Unless
end up in a discussion. I don't know. I just wanted to get this one out
you
of the
have
way.
discussion points on them. I think we can.
I think they need to be looked at by everyone just so everyone knows what you're approving. I've looked at them and I'm fine, but
I mean, I make the assumption people come prepared to meetings.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you that right now.
And Julie also does,
and I've gone through all of these and as far as I'm concerned, they're acceptable and we could do them as a lot or we could do them as individual.
I'll make
Depending on
that
what you think the
motion.
need is.
I will make the motion that we grant the elderly exemptions as printed.
Second.
is there further discussion? I think Julie's done a nice job of pulling this all together.
She had.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay.
That was-
Exemptions are granted.
Now, we did that both for elderly and disabled, right? We did the whole lot.
She said the exemptions as granted. So yes, all of the, as printed. So as was printed here.
On the agenda, it
Yes.
says elderly exemption abatements, so.
Oh, well,
I know it is, but some of these are disabled.
Well,
I did not- and I
I'll
did
make
not
a second
realize-
motion.
And I want to make sure that we're
If we
doing
didn't
both.
print it correctly, then that's fine. I will make a motion that we grant the disabled exemptions as presented.
checked.
I'll go back to writing my name.
Okay. Is there discussion of this motion? And then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Good.
that means we got a bunch, we can always sign it. All right, and then we get to the donation to Maxwell Lakeside Park in the amount of $2,000 from the Enfield Village Association.
Make a motion to accept the donation with thanks.
Second.
Oh, go ahead.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes.
I
Oh,
have one addition to this agenda that I
Are you
think we can
opposed?
get done really quickly.
Okay.
I don't know if you were ready to complete my evaluation tonight. But, if you guys would like to, I would be open to just extending my contract to April 1 and authorizing Eric to sign an amendment that I could write tomorrow to just do that instead of.
So I would just like to, so I'd like to formally offer public comment to anybody in the public, because I do think we're ready to have that non-public session under RSA 91A.
I think we,
I think the minutes
Unless
with that.
others.
Oh, these are minutes, I'm sorry.
No, I didn't,
we're
they
in
weren't
good shape there.
attached, so it's okay.
I think we're, yeah, sorry, I should have communicated better, but I got feedback last night and just didn't do it today. Okay, on it. Perfect. So if there's no public comments,
Okay.
is there any other business to come before the board?
Yeah, there's an abatement, a refund of a property taxes.
no, that's not before.
Yeah, they're coming around now for signatures.
It's coming around, okay.
Yeah, you want it done, oh, wait, no.
No, this is just our copy.
Yeah, don't,
It should
don't
be
get
coming
your copy
around.
with
There we
it.
go.
Here it is, it arrived. The refund has arrived.
And then,
Just a small thing, when we,
Keep it going.
yeah, sorry, there you go, take it away.
I'm not getting any.
We
younger.
mentioned that when we do donations, it would be helpful to know what the present balance of certain accounts is. So if we accept a donation to say Mascoma, Lakeside Park, it's good to know, just verbally even, the present balance is.
Rather than the total of the donations.
Yes, yes.
Well, that's gonna require some math. I don't have time for it now.
Oh, not tonight.
I hope there's no donations.
No, not tonight.
I want donations.
You're interested in the kind of the cash flow aspect, I'm assuming.
Or just about where we're at.
so to,
Lord have mercy, that's one, I'm taking the clip off the.
Okay, so I saw
to,
you read
Otherwise,
Fuji.
to keep us moving, I do think we're ready to do the final review of the town manager's performance review. If people agree with that, I would entertain a motion to enter non-public session in terms and conditions of RSA 91A for that purpose.
So moved with whatever small, like a small, whatever.
I don't know, I think this goes with this.
What is it?
Well, and the signature page seems to be gone or something. I've got the signature page, I don't know what
So I
that
did
is.
as a clump, and then I realized that I was gonna be holding the whole pile. so I
Is there
think
a
this is that one.
second to Kate's motion?
Second.
So I don't know what these two go with.
Discussion.
Oh, this is an elderly exemption here.
There's a bunch of-
And we did both of the, okay.
So
I don't know.
roll call vote to go into non-public. Kate,
Kate, yes?
Tracy,
Tracy, yes.
John,
Yes.
Eric, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your attending. We're gonna go into non-public. We'll be back shortly.